After covering the caveman-friendly 90215, we head to the other end of the spectrum for Close to the Edge.
It's only 3 songs, but it's just so packed with so much information you gotta shove down inside of yourself. Rush, them being great fans. You can see so much of the comparison, especially Chris SQUIRE and the type of tone that Geddy used on his bass, and the way that they used experimental sounds and nature.
Chris SQUIRE, you were talking about tone, obsessed over his tone. There are even stories about Chris sitting at the mixing board for hours just playing with the EQ on one part.
Definitely impressive to see the commitment that he had for the listener and as well as to punch through the sound. He's mixed so well and he carries a lot of this album.
Enough has been said about this classic Yes lineup, and I think a lot has been said about the influence of this specific album as well, so I think we'll just jump into it. Without further, Bovine Excrement, Close to the Edge. Yes is trying to paint a picture for us here. It's a beautiful sunny day, the birds are chirping, all is right in the world. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, 2 18-wheelers carrying inventory for Guitar Center and Sweetwater get into a head-on collision. Instruments are crashing against the pavement, noise everywhere. Then you look up and you see Chris SQUIRE standing on top of the wreckage, absolutely destroying the bass guitar.
I don't think we need to say anything else. I think that was actually spot on.
This is like your dad's description of freeform jazz. It sounds like everyone's playing a solo at the same time. So yes, this is a mess of just like explosion of instruments, but at the same time, if you really listen to each individual instrument and the parts that they're playing, it's some really complex, interesting, intricate stuff.
Yeah, it's just kind of like how we talked about with some of the DT songs, where at first it sounds like a chaotic bunch of like nonsense. Couple listens in, you can see what they were actually going for and how they layered each part in. It honestly just sounds like Chris has everybody on his back for the intro.
Chris lays down some ridiculous bass lines, preserving some semblance of structure amid the chaos. He and Steve Howe sound really tight together too, with Rick Wakeman machine gunning notes. Rick Wakeman, by the way, is one of the greatest keyboardists ever. I mean, he's probably the only one who can give Jordan a run for his money. During Howe's solo, too, I think it's Bruford that stands out the most and grabbed my attention with the lightning fast rolls. Rick Wakeman does such a great job shifting between the roles of laying down actual pieces and then also adding to the ambience of the song with different noises. During our Dream Theater review last week, we talked about bands that are able to capture that high energy feel while still putting down a song in a major key, and Yes is one of those bands that do it so well. It's really funky, high energy, and upbeat, and sounds very 70s, but 70s on steroids. Rick carries us beautifully into part 3 with the heavenly ambience he provides. Including a real church organ on this gives the song such a cool feel too. Rick set out on a mission on this album to just basically touch every key of every instrument ever. As only the great prog groups do, they put together nearly a 20-minute song that's filled with brilliant ideas and different parts and really intricate things, but still sounds like one coherent piece. Very cool to pick up on many of the elements from our favorite bands too that they grabbed from stuff like this. I'd give this one an 8.5.
Being almost 20-minute runtime, like you mentioned, having all the different experimental sounds put together is some of the best stuff that I like to see from prog. Sorry. I give it a 7.
Here's Alex Lifeson tuning his guitar like in 2112. Seriously, a ton of Rush influence on here, though. I instantly thought of Making Memories and Tears, too, from 2112.
Majestic intro. I like how he had the quip of him starting saying, oh, all right, here we go, as he's tuning it. Great transitions, great acoustic work. John Anderson's vocals and his ability to just stay in that constant falsetto without it being annoying or irritating in any way.
This is a good song, but compared to the first one, I was surprised to see that this gets the most plays out of all 3 songs on Apple. It's really good at capturing a certain mood, but I think the first one puts you on such a journey. Rick Wakeman dials in the perfect mood lead, or Moog if you're an asshole. It has a very wistful, almost nostalgic vibe to it, and while I think that it's not necessarily the prog spectacular like the first one was, it does such a great job of creating an atmosphere, and that's why I think it sets this one apart. I give this one a 7.5.
Oh, the second half transition was really well done. It makes it seem as if a new song has started. Chris' drive in his bass is just monstrous. I really do see why Geddy was influenced by him to play it. I give it a 7.
Energy right off the bat. Steve Howe is the star of this one with the brilliant riffs and dialing in the perfect funk tone.
Chris and Steve exploding on the intro. They can play almost two separate pieces, but mend them together perfectly.
Chris Squire blasting through after taking a step more back into the background on the last one. And I think Jordan based his whole career off of that harpsichord solo by Rick Wakeman. And Bill Bruford goes crazy with the snare rolls, mixing in the ghost notes, and it sounds fantastic with the acoustic guitar.
I know we talk about Chris a lot on this, but I mean, he really did.
Chris is the whole album. Close to the Chris Squire. Chris to the edge.
He throws in these intricate bass harmonics and chords that just catch you completely off guard. Just masterful.
And then he appropriately finishes this one off just absolutely shredding on bass like some Eddie Van Halen shit. Does Chris Squire get the honorary Metalhead pick pass?
He does, without a doubt.
The song really came out of nowhere for me. I obviously wanted to do this review because of the title track, but hearing something like this, of this much quality on the back half to end this album out, I was not expecting that. So I give this one an 8.
This one is definitely by far the most energy-driven one and most well-structured song on the album for me. Great piece. I give it an 8.
Overall, Yes went with quality over quantity, packing in brilliance into an album in just under 40 minutes. Moments like the intro and Close to the Edge is packed with so much musicianship and technicality, it takes several listens to really unpack and makes much more sense when listened to in detail.
Not a lot of musicians have the skill, patience, or capability to put together an experimental album such as this one. It's really fantastic to see how they set the foundation for the people that we love, such as Rush and Dream Theater, that they were able to pave the way and kind of give them the confidence to make the music that they were making, and showing how that you can be successful with the right audience and the right skill. Birds chirping and the water dripping, and most people wouldn't even think to do that. Most people, it's like verse, chorus, verse, end.
That was 90215. A lot of you Yes fans really shit all over the album. Look, it's not like the greatest work of art I've ever heard in my life either, but there were some great songs on there, like Changes and the opener. I don't think we talked about Chris Squire enough, but Chris Squire was the absolute biggest stud on this whole thing. Carried the entire album technically and tonally.
Not to take away from any other members, they're all fantastic in their own way. John Anderson to this day still sounds almost exactly like he did 30 years ago, which most people can't do.
Well, many consider this to be their magnum opus. This is only really scratching the surface of what I think this excellent band has to offer, with so many songs like Roundabout and albums like the Yes album. So I think we'll be back for some more Yes very soon. I give this one an 8.
A 7.